I appreciate you being here, man. I'm super excited to catch up with you. I think you are incredibly aspirational first, inspirational second, and really, really tactful third for your audience and the people who are looking to build. I know as a longtime follower myself, I feel like it was not that long ago that you came out of nowhere, and I was just like, I don't know why I'm favoriting every video I see from this guy. He either speaks in perfect soundbite. I don't know if he can breathe normally. I hope he's working on that. Or it could be for brand recognition, which I'm totally fine for, right? I don't dye my hair brown because the gray is how people recognize me. I'm all about it. And I'm a big fan of your books, right? $100 million offers, $100 million leads, and now you have $100 million money models. And so I'd love to spend the majority of the time here really kind of like digging into it. And my first question from someone who's written 3 books myself is why did you write another book with everything that you're doing, and what problem do you think volume 3 solves that volume 1 and 2 might have not been ready to solve?
Yeah, so I actually, believe it or not, all 3 books were one book. And it would end up being this tome when I finished it. And I started writing it in 2021. And it was originally called Lead Generation and Monetization Structures because I thought it would like sound cooler and like a textbook. And then I realized no one would know what that meant anyways. And so then it was like, okay, this repeated thing. I was like, okay, I want to get this out there, which is fundamentally like how to make money, right? And it was really just trying to crystallize kind of the thinking processes that had created a lot of the material success that I had had up to that point. And a mentor of mine said, write it down now because you'll forget the little details. And so that's why I documented a lot of this while I was selling the company in the year after. And so what I wanted to put this out, but I was like, shoot, no one can really use this until they like really know how to advertise. And then it was like, oh shoot, well they can know how to advertise, but if they don't have an offer, then they need to have that first. And so if we think about the 3 questions that someone has to answer first, is like, what do I sell? Like you have to start with what you're going to sell. Like, what are you going to sell? And so offers answers that question, right? Which is an offer so good people feel stupid saying no. And it talks about the value equation, which I'm happy to get into. But like the value equation of like how is value created in general? Because people are like, create value. Like no one says like, okay, cool. I look at a 6-year-old, I say create value. They just look at you back like, I don't know what that means. And I think a lot of terms are like that. They're thrown around a lot on the internet. And people nod along because they're rewarded for nodding along, but it doesn't actually no one defines the terms. And so once you have an offer and you know how to make it valuable, which we talk about, then it's like you got to let people know about it, which is everything that Leads is about, which is really a book on advertising. It's called Leads because when I tested 8 different titles, Leads is the one that people selected as the best title. But fundamentally, it's a book on advertising. So it's like you can reach out to people one-on-one. You can reach out to people one-to-many via paid ads. You can reach out to people one-to-many via content. And that's basically a 4-box of hot and cold, people who know you, people who don't, and one-on-one and one-to-many. That's the 4-box. Cold outreach, warm outreach is the 2 there. And then you have the other 4-box, which is lead getters. And so it's like you have affiliates. So partners, people who have your basically spheres of influence or centers of influence, people who already have the audience you want, and then trying to do a deal with them to send it to you. You've got your own customers who will send you other customers like them. You've got your employees who will do the core 4 on your behalf. They'll do one-on-one outbound. They'll post content on your behalf. They'll run ads on your behalf. Or finally, you've got agencies that can do the core 4 on your behalf as well. And so those are basically the 8 ways that you can do anything in terms of advertising. And so once you have the thing and you have all the ways to advertise it, then it's like, okay, shoot, well, I'm still poor, right? I'm still not rich yet. Like, what the hell? Now, no matter what, functionally, if you have a working business that already generates some sort of revenue, if you make the offer better, you'll make more money. If you advertise more, you'll make more money. But this book, Money Models, is about the monetization structures, which is what are the different mechanisms behind basically reverse engineered from the ultimate goal of a business, which is like, how do I get someone to buy, number 1? How do I get them to spend more, number 2? And then how do I get them to spend that money faster, number 3? And then number 4, how do I get them to do it over and over again? And so if you accomplish all 4 of those objectives in terms of how you create the monetization of the business that you have, then you'll be cash flow positive. And the specific goal that I set out to accomplish within this book is something that I've always sought to do in each business, which is I like to generate 2 times the amount of net free cash from a new customer that it costs you both get and deliver them. So basically it's 2x CAC plus COGS is the equation. No one really cares what that is, but basically you make twice as much from them as it costs you to get them and deliver to them. That's it, and you do it in the first month. And the reason that's important is that if you can do that in the first month, then it removes money as a constraint to growth. And so then you no longer need outside capital. And so we've been able to have a lot of very large businesses that have grown very quickly because capital was a constraint to growth. And I'll walk through the first time this ever happened for me. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
So like when I had my first gym, was my first business, I would run these weight loss challenges, and it would cost me like $10 a lead to get a lead. And then I would close 1 out of 5 leads, and I would sell them on something that was $500. And so I would spend, $50 to get the customer, and then I'd make $500. And then 2 days later, I'd make $200 in supplement sales. So now I'm at $700. Now, not all of that's profit. So maybe call it $100 in profit. So I'm at $600. And then, 3 weeks into this 6-week challenge that I would run, I would try and get them to sign up for a recurring membership. And then the next week, I would say, hey, now that you're, signed up for a membership, you want to prepay for the year. And I give them another deal. And so then I would pull more cash forward. And so by doing that, I was able to open up 6 locations by the time I was 25, just using the cash flow from each facility and being able to preload. Basically, I could open a bank account, put $5,000 in, sign a lease, and I would have $100,000 in the bank account minus whatever cost of opening it would be by the end of the month. And so I could cash flow the opening of each facility using customers to finance it. And so I ended up calling it customer finance acquisition as the objective. And fundamentally, that's what this book basically breaks down. Is like, okay, if those are the 4 objectives. You have some offers that attract customers. You have some offers that are better structured for upsells, some that are better for downsells, and then some that are better for continuity. And then when you put all 4 of those together, you create something that creates a lot of money really quickly over and over.
What are the intangibles, though? Why were you able to do that? Not just because you're following this process for your gyms, and other people can open up a gym and it doesn't work out.
I think it's really interesting. I think we're motivated by deprivation. So it's, the equal opposite. Like a lack is what drives us. It's like you want something because it's not there. And so that vacuum drives you. And I think I've always been relatively ambitious. And so I always wanted to have, I never wanted, like when I opened my first gym, I was never like, oh, this is going to be the only thing I do. I immediately wanted to have a big chain of gyms. I wanted to go national, called it United Fitness, America's Gym. Like that was where I wanted to go. And then we ended up switching to licensing and doing it that way as the backbone. But that was always the goal. And so to answer the question that you originally asked, like why me? No idea. But I would say that would be an observation that I think some people don't have the same goals, and so it makes sense that they follow a different path. And then I think to a degree, I think there's a lot of ego that a lot of everybody has, because it's hard to say that like you're not good at something, because it means you're bad, or if you make it mean that. And I honestly just think that's like, and I know you're the same way, so you'll probably agree with this. Like I will pay whatever it takes to learn from someone who's better than me. It's just like, it's not even a question. Like whatever it is, whatever the money, whatever the fate, like I'll do whatever it takes to get better. And I just don't think a lot of people think that way. And that's okay. That's fine. But that's just how I've operated.
Can I double click though a little bit on the upsell section? So in the book, you just listed it out, and a lot of words, but for everyone who's watching and listening, super simple, right? It's attraction offers, upsell offers, downsell offers, continuity offers, right? Okay. So attraction offers, I think I understand. I think most people understand. You have the product, you have some product market fit. You could sell it to one person, and there's a reason. Right? Like I think in the book you talk about $21 for 21 days at a gym. Great, right? Nice. But then you go into the upsell. I think a lot of people get stuck at the upsell. I know I've been stuck there before. I mean, most of my audience, right, is in sales, and specifically in real estate sales around the world, right? Once someone becomes a lead, right, like a buyer, a seller, or an agent, right, or a brokerage firm, we have multiple ways to monetize that relationship: premium services, referrals, development, consulting, education, all those things. Do you think, if you're a real estate agent anywhere on the globe, do you think agents who figured out product market fit with a product that they don't actually have to build or create in any way, shape, or form, it just exists, and they're brokering the deal, do you think that they should build upsell ladders the way you talk about? right? If the asset isn't yours, like, do you think any real estate agent should then offer, okay, great, I'm going to offer coaching, personal brand packages, media production add-ons, either to other agents or my clients, or are there some jobs where just that upsell train just doesn't work?
I think to me the upsell would be more so basically I can take a larger percentage using the same. Basically, it's like the way I collect the money versus what words I use and how I position the offer can be sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're divorced. So like an equal example would be like, okay, I'm in wealth management. Like I charge a percentage of, I have a carry or I have whatever, I have 1% of assets under management. Like how did this work for me? Well, it's like, well, if you're charging 50 basis points versus 1% or 100 basis points, it's like that upsell might be the other things you get for those additional fees. And so I think you absolutely can do that. You then get into what level of operational complexity am I willing to, endure to get this extra revenue, and then you make the trade.
How do you think about packaging versus segmenting offers? So a lot of what you talk about too, because you go through the list, you're hooking people, sometimes at low cost or relative low cost. We upsell from there. You hook, create continuity, create great MRR, ARR, and round and round and round we go, right? But sometimes I also think that the best offer is the one that's the most inclusive, right? So you think about like Amazon Prime, Netflix has every single show on there. You're not paying $1 a month for drama, $1 a month for reality TV, $1 a month this. The way you used to do for cable, right? They took all the channels, boom, one package, and now everything's changing. It's probably going to go back to the way we were before. Do you think high-end concierge packages in the real estate world, maybe that include the brokerage of the deal, interior design, property management for 12 months, maybe something tagged on with home financing, do you think that could be the future of continuity, using your language, in my business? Or do you think there are some things that just can't be packaged and it's better to hook in and then upsell up the ladder?
It's a really good question because I think about this a lot. What is the one perfect business model? You look at like Amazon Prime, to your point, like, okay, well, Prime is one membership and they just keep, loading more and more stuff into that one membership. Did they make the wrong call? Well, clearly they've the most widely adopted product in the US in terms of memberships. I think I see it more as these are the functions that must occur, and the mechanisms that I have in the book basically facilitate those functions to happen. And most businesses, and also it's who's this targeted for. So my book is targeted for what I would say basically bootstrapped, so non-investor backed businesses who have to make money from customers that come in the door. And number two, typically they're ones because both of those are large technology platforms. And so most of the time, like 78% of businesses in the US are service-based, right? And so, at least the last time I checked. And so most of the times, each of these functions can exist separately. You can put them all together as long as those functions occur. So if we divorce it from the quote offers and just think about what happens, it's like I have to have something that gets people in the door. I have to have something that gets them to pay me money. And ideally, I have to have a mechanism to get them to come back and do it again. That's what we're doing here. Now, if that means that they're coming back and then we fill that with more advertising, that's fine. But having a mechanism to bring them back for the vast majority of businesses who don't have premium brands, just being real, having that hand to hand. And what's been interesting for me is like I have to write as though I don't have a brand for the people. It's like, oh, how do you get talent? I'd be like, oh, just make a post and then get the best people to just immediately it doesn't. So
not to cut you off, but I remember I gave a keynote speech in I think it was in Dubai.
Yeah.
And I get out there, I did the thing, I told everyone what to do. Gary V follows me. I think it was in Dubai, maybe Abu Dhabi. Follows me. The first thing he says on stage is, all right, guys, I'm going to talk to you about what you're actually going to do if you don't have a TV show like that guy. Love him, but nothing he just said is going to work for any of you fucking people. And I was like, do I stay backstage? Do I go back out? Is this a fight now? What do I do now? And I appreciate what he brought to the table as well. But like, it's like that classic saying, like, what is it, like, if you don't work for money, right, you'll never work a day in your life. It's like, okay, well, that's easy to say when you have money.
Yeah.
Say when
Step one, be born
rich.
Beautiful, right? Step two, be born rich. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
No, I'm with you. So I've tried to take it from that perspective. The vast majority of the people that are in my audience, I mean, we're talking, a dentist, a chiropractor, a lawn care guy, an HVAC, a plumber. Like, most of them have. They're not like, I am the white glove. Like, you pay me one time a year, and I do everything for it. That's not how the vast majority of businesses work. And so this book is for the vast majority of businesses. Obviously, you can just be, Bernard Arnault and just start Louis Vuitton and just have the biggest, most premium brand ever. And then you can just charge so much money for something that you just automatically include everything else in it. And that's ideal. So I was talking to a business owner the other day, yesterday. She's in the beauty space doing like 30-ish million a year. And, she was like, hey, there's all these and she was talking a lot about like the little mechanics, like, hey, I think we could do this to tweak this pricing. I think we could do this to improve the churn. And we were going through everything. And we just sat there for a minute and I was like, you've been about the same revenue the last 2 years, right? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay. I think you just need to like go get a Kardashian. And I was like, you don't actually need to get a Kardashian. I was like, but I think you just need a massive brand association that's going to get you from 30 to 150, right? And it was just kind of sitting there for a second. I was like, to your point, you can't conversion rate optimize a 10x. Yeah. You're not gonna little trickle your way, like little tweak your way to 10x. And I think that's actually one of the mistakes that small business owners make, is not thinking big enough. Like, well, instead of doing that, how do I just get 100 times the traffic? And you're like, I'll start a massive TV show that'll murder. Now, obviously, you didn't know it was going to murder, but you made a bet, right? It was worth the shot, and obviously, it's paid off. And that's carried over into everything that you've done, and that's why. I mean, you're crushing it on the personal brand side. It's super impressive. As a side note, I love it.
Thanks. So, you bring up a lot of good points. I just want to narrow in as much as we can. You also talk a lot about kind of hacking a monetization train, I guess, if you will. You have to use those words specifically, but like in our business, we spend all of our resources before getting paid.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of time, money, effort before getting paid. Okay. For us, it could be months. You might never get paid. If you're, if you're a personal trainer, right, you might collect on a credit card, or maybe they pay you 30 days later, something like that. I think a lot about fast money models and slow money models. Yeah. Right. And which one is more long-term viable in 2030 now? And in our business, we've tried to hack this by monetizing faster through media, through partnerships, early funnel services, the way you're talking about, right? Create make sure as many people are out there. What would you do if you had to flip the cash flow equation in our business? How would you think about economic disruption? Because I think we've done a pretty strong job, and we've created a lot of mini-me's now, and a lot of the market has kind of followed us now with the value disruption, right? If we're going to charge a fee, we've got to give the absolute most value. The value has to change. We have to adapt with the times. Yeah. I don't think anyone's really cracked the cash flow equation and disrupting the economics
for the agent.
A firm that kind of turned real estate into a subscription fee model and 100% commissions, but you've got to get to like the greatest level of volume at all times. It's hard to keep control of quality, and I don't know. You have ideas?
Basically, how do you crack the commission? The delayed commission structure that has permeated the industry forever.
Yeah, what keeps me up at night? Exactly. What keeps me up at night is disrupting the economic model in a way that hasn't really been done. Because right now you have traditional commission models for most salespeople. Yeah. It's been like that 100 years. You also have kind of revenue share, right? Capped model that have been done since the early 80s. Yeah. Nothing else has changed since then. You can play with the percentages, this, that, the other, but flipping the cash flow equation in our business has never happened. And maybe there isn't a way. Sometimes it's just like, dude, you make the sandwich, pay for the sandwich. No one's going to have a subscription for sandwiches. It might be possible that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to ask anybody, I'm going to ask you.
Well, I actually think about it in terms of risk. So it's like, why are the commissions so crazy? Right? Obviously sometimes you're the other side of like, I worked forever and then the guy backdoored me to some other dude and they got the commission. Like you have all those horror stories, right? And on the equal opposite, there's the guy who like, I got the listing, sold it the next day and made $200,000 or whatever it is, right? But the thing is that I think most agents prefer to take risk to get upside. And so basically if you establish... Yeah. So if you establish enough of a brand or reputation that you sell houses and you said, hey, here's my deal. You pay me $50,000 up front and I sell it when I sell it. Or you pay 50, pay 50 now, 50 when I sell it, independent of the price. So it saves you, but it improves my cash flow. Now, that might be something you start in the beginning, but it'd be hard in the beginning because you don't have a reputation. And at the end, when you have a reputation, you want to get more money, so you're willing to take the risk. And so, I guess to answer the question, I don't have a good answer, but I would say like to me that's the big variable is risk, is who takes the risk on, and that's why like that would be the only way to break the dynamic.
So imagine you're somebody, forget real estate for a moment. You have a job, you're 9 to 5, you hate your life. It's not what you thought, right? Maybe you're like me and you turn 40 and you're like, I'm not having a midlife. Oh my God, I'm going to do this one more time and I'll be 80. I'm having a midlife crisis right now. Am I doing the right thing? What am I doing? Where am I spending my time? You know what? I'm going to jump into this multi-billion-dollar a year creator economy. I've always liked doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Where do you think today creators are going wrong when they try to monetize their audience with products, and how could they learn if they're watching this right now from building out a money model?
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes is trying to do too many businesses. So so if we're talking, I have a fixed audience, for example, like I have one audience. So what happens is they sell something and then they think, oh, I should, let's say they make $1 million a year selling whatever the widget is. Okay. Well, if I want to make more money, I need to just add another widget. And so what happens, they end up starting 3, 4, 5, 6, quote, different businesses, selling to the same audience to make more money rather than simply growing the audience. And so it's the hard thing, which is usually the right thing. Not always, but like if you have a 1 million person audience and you're making $1 million a year, the answer might not be, let me sell 3 more SKUs. It might just be, how do I go from 1 million to 10 million? Because that's probably the right answer. It's just harder and it takes longer. And so I think that's probably number one, the biggest mistake that I think creators are making from a monetization perspective is they just want to start too many companies and they don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do it right. And then the second, I think, big issue is that they're typically under monetized and don't really understand kind of like the continuum that exists for them to monetize. So it's like at the very end extreme in terms of risk and reward, you have start my own business, start my own product, whatever. So I front the capital, I make the brand, I run the logistics, I run all of it, right? And on the other extreme, it's like you can just get paid to post stuff, right? So just as like a sponsor. Actually, even more so would be an affiliate. So it's like someone gets you a code and then you get a percentage, right? And so as you walk down the risk pathway, you have these different vehicles for monetizing. So you have affiliate structures, you have sponsorships that you can just get paid up front no matter what happens. You can do sponsorships in addition to licenses of NIL, so name, image, likeness, where they can start using your face to advertise the brand. And then if you structure that well, then maybe you get a royalty on the revenue, or you get shares or a profit share. All of those would be things. And then next to that, you'd be okay. Well, I'm gonna own the LLC, but I'm not gonna actually own the stuff. So it's like I'm gonna white label, and I'm just gonna be the promotion engine. And then finally, you have I'm going to own everything soup to nuts. I'm going to manufacture it. I'm going to whatever. That's assuming physical products. But same if you're going to do services. Like I'm going to actually like hire the people, and I'm going to create a company that helps people make content or whatever it is, right? And so there's this huge selection that someone can go through. And I think not even being aware that these are the different options that they have available to them. But yeah, so they're not aware of them. So they pick the wrong vehicle. And then underneath of that vehicle, thinking about I have this massive audience. The right product might not be the thing that the most people buy, depending on your goal. Like let's say if the goal is monetization, so maximum money, let's just say that's the goal. Well, there might be a subsegment of the audience that's worth 10 times more. And so it's not necessarily like if we slice it and say, okay, where's the largest segment? What we want to reverse engineer is gross profit per unit sold times number of units sold. And so it's both of those things together. And I think that's probably the secondary kind of big one. I guess that's the third one. So number one, too many SKUs. They try to start more businesses rather than growing the business. Number two, they structure the vehicle that they're pursuing it through incorrectly, affiliate sponsorship, some sort of partnership, white label, and then them actually doing everything soup to nuts. And then finally, not actually picking the correct product to even promote based on the absolute, basically it's the area under the curve that you'd be calculating, like what's the most amount of money that I can make in terms of number of units times gross profit. Long-winded, but hopefully that was a more complete answer.
It was. Your audience for this book, like you said, is probably not a massively venture-backed business, right? Bootstrap founders, new entrepreneurs, people who need cash flow to be positive, 2x CAC, right? The business that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. For anyone who feels that might be counterintuitive, how do you balance that with risk, especially when you're bootstrapping and you can't outspend? Yeah. Is there a certain level of cash investment you got to come to the table with because you're not starting from zero?
Really good question. To me, I will continue to tinker with the money model until that happens. Like, I will not hit the gas until I have a way to, and like the thing is there's always a way. Like the whole idea behind, like, unless, so like for venture-backed stuff, right? I would wager, because we have a big venture arm at acquisition.com. I would wager that the vast majority of venture doesn't need to be venture. They just tend to they play the valuation arbitrage game, which is a different game altogether than the actual core economics of the business. But like, unless you're seeking some sort of network effect that you have to artificially lower your price such that you drain the market and then lock it down, which the vast majority of businesses do not actually operate that way. They just happen to have technology, and then we operate under the assumption that because it's technical, it's going to cost a lot of money to build, which is no longer the case. And that's kind of like what I would say, like, I think the venture model itself is going to get turned around, because so many single founders or double or triple founders can just, like, you can start these things up for like 50 grand and vibe code a lot. And AI is getting so much faster and so much better from a technical perspective.
Dude, our lead investor, not to cut you off,
no, you're
I had
good.
a conversation with him last night, and he was just talking about just general cash flows, et cetera. And he's like, remind me, how much did it cost us, hard cost, to open up Arizona as a market, right? Now, we obviously didn't open the entire state in one day, but we entered that market. And I reminded him, like, remember 4 years ago, when we first started the business, I was interviewing, different, like, growth heads, CROs from all the major brokerages, and I was really just kind of digging in, how much does it cost you to open a market? I want to go sell in New York. I want to sell in New York. What's it cost? And the average, outside of like the wackos who spend millions, the average is about, like, you got to bake in about $500,000 to open a market. Okay, we opened up Arizona with $25,000, more like it was like 26,000.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of hard costs.
Yeah.
And soft costs are, in my mind, kind of all baked in.
Yeah.
And so you're right. Which then, but it makes me nervous, because it means if it's cheap for me, it's getting cheaper for everyone. It's kind of like one of the things you talk about at the time. Like, if it's really, really hard for me, it's really, really hard for everyone. If I stick it out, it means more people are going to bail, right? So if it's cheaper for me, it's going to be cheaper for everyone. More and more and more competition. Yeah. Harder and harder and harder to find product market fit. Harder and harder and harder to find upsell opportunities. Harder and harder to find continuity. So what do we do?
I mean, I feel like it was a bait question. I know that you think this way, and I don't know if you say it publicly, but, like, if more people are in, then it's fine. More people to beat, like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think winners win at the end of the day, no matter what. And if it's easier, then I'll just work harder. Like, and if it's harder for everyone, then other people will fall off. But at the end of the day, as long as it's humans versus humans, the people who try harder will always have edge. And so, like, I kind of shrug a little bit there. Like, it was cheaper for you because you have more skill.
Sure.
And skill still takes time to develop. And so,
sure.
To this, like, just go have a TV show. Yeah, just be born beautiful. Like, just go build a 15 million person, business owner audience. Yeah, just go do that, and then you'll be fine. It's like, yeah, sure, just do that. Just that small thing. Just go do that, and then you're good to go. And so the thing is the hard cost has decreased, but the barrier for skill is still high. And fundamentally, if you zoom all the way out, it has always been humans plus tools against humans plus tools. And so tools simply create more leverage. Every person has more ability with more leverage with technology. And so the best players just get even better. And so I'll use a quote from The Wire, which is, it's the same game, just twice as fierce.
Solid throwback quote. Of the 4 offer types, as I think about kind of the different customers I have and the different types of businesses, attraction, upsell, downsell, continuity. Right? Should every business try to use all 4? Or are some models better off focusing on just 1 or 2?
I think you can have just like, what I talk about in the book is like, you want to implement one. And we've had businesses, so for example, we bought a teeth whitening chain that had 14 locations corporate. And when we bought it, we were like, okay, I thought that the LTV was lower than I thought it could be. And so all we did was we just implemented a better upsell structure in terms of when people walked in the door, and we ended up doubling LTV for the business and kept the cost basis the same. And so like when you double LTV, it more than disproportionately drops to the bottom line because revenue goes up, fixed costs stay the same. And so there's a huge amount of basically incremental margin we were able to add to the business. And so in like 2 years, we went from 14 to 28 locations, and a large part of that growth was funded by basically the improved model. And so I bring that up to say like that business was changed with just one of these being implemented. And so when you're looking at a business, I see this as lenses. And that business was bringing customer in, no problem. Now, could we maybe have improved the attraction offer? Yeah. But was it the constraint? Not really. And so we didn't need to focus there. And so it really depends if you are more demand constrained, then the attraction offer is going to be more important for you. If you're demand constrained because you don't have enough LTV per customer, then it could be any of the other 3. It could be you need to sell more people because you have some sort of other ways for them to buy via downsells. It could be you just need to get more upsells, or it's like, can we create some sort of stability and cash flow via continuity? Now, when I look at my businesses that I've had, at least in the hardcore service side, they've almost always had all 4, almost always. So
it's universal for the most part.
For the most part, and here's the messed up part, right?
Across fitness, SaaS, services.
Yes, 100% across those. But the thing is when I don't have a brand. When you have a brand, basically all the rules that I write about don't matter. So it's like the Matrix, where like everybody who's in the Matrix who's fighting has to play by the rules of the Matrix until you're Neo. And then he's like, so what are you telling me, that I can dodge bullets? And he's like, no, when you're ready, when you have a brand that's big enough, you won't have to. You can just say, this is the fucking price, pay it or not, go away. And you can do that because you have so much demand that you now have all the cards, you have all the leverage. But when you don't have the leverage, when you don't have that demand, it's like we have to generate that demand. We have to get people interested. We have to lower the barrier to get them in, and then we can mousetrap them their way up so that we can actually make this business profitable.
I have 2 final questions for you. Number 1, you're the guy who's watching this. Maybe you're in real estate. Maybe you're an accountant. Maybe you're 19. You don't really know what your passion is. You know you want to be successful. You know you want to have a great life. You don't do anything 100% well, but you're also not an idiot. What business do you go start today?
Oh, I'd be hardcore looking at AI stuff. I mean, I think that there's a gigantic opportunity from a service side of AI implementation in small business, Main Street, because I think so many businesses are like, they recognize that they're like, man, AI is scary. And then they're like, wait, they like use ChatGPT for Google. You know what I mean? It helps them with their emails, maybe writes a memo or 2 for them, but they're not like using AI. And so I think that most business owners probably have big insecurity, big fear around that. And I think that if you're a younger person and you're a little bit more, technical savvy, and even if you're not tech savvy, just become it, because these things are all learnable. And then you can sell a super high leverage skill. And with AI specifically, there's so much value that can get created in a business, and you can always charge a percentage of the value that you create. And so if you can approach a business that has 100 salespeople and say, I think I can automate half of their jobs, that's a huge delta. And one person can do that. And that's the beauty of technology. It's also the scary part, but it's the beauty of it.
Relating it back to our business, it's like this argument that I've had with the investment community for a long time. One of the questions I'd ask you is, how do you flip the cash equation and the money model in what we do?
Yeah.
Right. And what is, our probably highest cash business, I'm pretty sure, lowest multiple business. And like, okay, well, you have simple. We have an AI service as a software, right? It is real. It is awesome. I don't even fully understand it, but I know it works. I know how it works. I pay for it to work. And it's completely redefined the game. So half of the investment community will say, great, SaaS, monetize it. Monthly subscription, enterprise software. The other side, and where I've kind of erred on, I'm like, that feels super cancelable to me at any time. And I don't know if I am going to outpace everybody else in the AI space. Yeah. But what I do know is I know people love to feel like things are free until they're not.
Yeah.
And so instead of charging $50 to $1,000 a month or whatever it might be, why not just say, here you go, just take it, use it, just give me a percentage of what you make. If you don't make anything as a success fee, you don't have to pay me and use it, it's fine. But if you do make money, we have an agreement and we take a success fee based on your income. And there's just so much more money to be made over here, but the investment community doesn't value it because it's not classically ARR.
Yeah.
It just like drives me. I get frustrated.
No, I hear you. I think I actually really love this conversation because investors like things to fit into neat, clean boxes. They're like, oh, it's a SaaS. This is how I value SaaS. And so blah, 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 right? And I actually think it's lack of first principles thinking because, investors more than anything just kind of follow trends. Oh, my buddy invested in it. I guess it's a good idea. Even at the highest levels, they're like, oh, Sequoia's in, or oh, A16Z's in, fine, I'll throw in, right? But if we just reason from first principles, the only reason that SaaS is valued the way it is because it has high gross margins, especially high contribution margin, and is traditionally super sticky, and if structured well, also has net MRR growth, as in like the same customer can increase in how much they spend over time. So that's ideal, right? Net negative MRR, ARR. But most investors don't think about it that way. Just think about like what does SaaS accomplish that makes it valuable? And then are there other businesses that, like I'll give you a totally different example that I think functions like SaaS. If you're in hormone replacement, very few people get off hormone replacement or switch from hormone replacement. And it has, and like, do they take more hormones over time? Probably, right? And do they stick with the same provider most of the times? Yeah. It's like, okay, so this is something that actually functions like SaaS, even though it's not technical, right? And so I think about that type of stuff when it, like, and I think we have to reverse engineer from the goal, because I'm 100% I'm in the same exact bucket as you, and I am entrepreneur, like fundamentals first. If this thing makes more money, I don't care if it's in a cleaner box over here. This makes more money, and that money is stickier, and it has more upside, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? The other piece that's kind of interesting from an investor perspective is the difference between volatility and risk. And I think that I would imagine that with the performance structure that you have, there's greater volatility, but not necessarily greater risk. So I'll give an example. Yeah, I'll give an example for the audience. So like, if you think about insurance, right? Like every year that there's no Katrina that hits, you're crushing it. And then Katrina hits every 7th year, and then you just lose your ass. It's volatile, but not risky as long as weather doesn't get crazy. But I'm not going to get into that argument, right? But fundamentally, we know that it's predictable, but it is volatile. And so I think it's the same degree, like real estate's going to be seasonal, or it's cyclical. We know that. It's also seasonal too, right? It has both of those elements, but it's predictable. And so, but investors don't like that traditionally. Every investor wants to approximate a bond. How close to a bond can you make this business? And that's usually because the less you know about business, the more you think that way. And the more, like, those types of beautiful things only exist in the vague. The more you know about something, the more details, the more you realize there's always bodies in every business. There's always skeletons, there's always shit. And so that's why I tend to not be as romantic about like, oh, how are they going to think about me? Now, if we're approaching a sale, like you're trying to exit, then yeah, I think there's a little bit of horse and pony show of actually we're kind of like this, and there's a little bit of that. But as far as like if you're owning it for the long haul, at least this is me talking more than anything. I just build it to make the absolute most money over the longest period of time, and I to hell with anybody who has an issue with it.
My last question for you. You've said that business is an endurance game.
Yeah.
So what keeps you from defaulting back to hard mode when things finally get easier?
You know, I'll tell you a story. I had, so the first time I felt like I made it, I lost everything twice. And then, like, this is right when we started the licensing after losing everything 2 times. And I had $100,000 in my bank account. And it wasn't in the business bank account or the checking, which would end up getting, drained for some random expense that would hit or some pipe that would burst or whatever, but actually in my personal account. And I think 3 or 4 months after that, I had $1 million in my bank account. And so it happened super fast from like bankrupt to like, holy shit, I'm a millionaire. And I went to this meetup with these entrepreneurs, and I didn't deserve to be in the room. And it was supposed to be for people who were making 10 million or more a year. And at the time, I think I was pacing like $300,000 or $400,000 a month. And mind you, like 7 months earlier, I was dead broke. So I was like, I just was like, oh my, and I recognized all the people there. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And anyways, I went up and I kind of told my story. This is what's happening. This was working, whatever. And one of the guys there was a big baller, and he came up to me right after I'd said my little piece, and he said, "Hey man, if what you said is true, like if all those are your economics for the business," he said, "you need to go hard as fuck right now." And I was like, I just like turned white, and he said, "Because if what you say is true, then somebody bigger than you is going to take all your stuff, and they're going to immediately distribute it with their brand and their distribution and squash you." And I remembered that, both Layla and I remember this moment because it was like, we had this 6-week puppy dog period. We had just gotten married. We're making, $200,000-$300,000 a month take home. It was me, her, and like I had an assistant selling her at the kitchen counter. I was like, this is the dream. And then from that point on, he said, when it gets easy is when you go hard. And so I think it's to your point of like, when things get easy is when we have the desire to pull our foot off the gas. But it's like once everything clicks, it's like that's when you got to run, because also opportunity windows close, and I think that's a big one.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Yeah, exactly. It's a straight, like the window's closed though. There's a turn that's coming, you just don't see it yet. And so it's like I control for risk by like when the iron's hot, like hit it as hard as you fucking can. And then to be fair, like during COVID, I'm very grateful that I did that because we ran super hard the 2 years going into COVID or 3 years going into COVID, and we had stockpiled a ton of cash so that when that happened and we operated super lean, we just like so many of our competitors went out of business, and we just like kept going through. And we had a 20% decrease in business in an industry where 100% of our customers are not legally allowed to do business. So like it was one of the biggest entrepreneurial accomplishments I had in my life, but it was because that guy's voice was in the back of my head, which is like, when it gets easy is when you go hard. And then when it's hard, you also go hard. So really, you just have to go hard all the time.
Never not go hard. You're the man. $100 million money models. Thanks so much for chatting with me, dude. It's always a pleasure. And I will see you on the next one.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.